Okay, so you know that thing like when you're really wiped, maybe you've been staring at a screen for way too long
Yeah.
and you rub your eyes and it's like a mini fireworks show behind your eyelids.
We've all been there.
Right. It's such a weird, like,
That is.
everyday experience.
It is.
And we never really stop to think about it.
Yeah.
But for this deep dive, we're going full on detective mode to try to like unravel the science behind why we see those stars when we rub our eyes.
It's more fascinating than you might think. Really. Oh, yeah. And to really grasp it, I think we need to start with a bit of a journey inside the eye itself.
Let's do it. Take us there.
So imagine like light entering your eye. It travels through the pupil and the lens, and it ultimately hits the retina at the back of your eye.
Okay, the retina.
Yeah.
Now, I vaguely remember that word from like biology class.
Right.
But how does it play into all of this?
So the retina is where the magic happens.
Okay.
Think of it like a super high-tech movie set.
Okay.
And instead of actors, it's packed with these specialized cells called photoreceptors.
Yeah.
And there are two main types. You've got rods and cones.
Right.
Rods are like the low-light specialists of the eye. They let us see even in dim conditions.
So that's how we're able to like navigate in the dark.
Exactly.
Yeah, what about the cones?
Cones are all about color. We have different cones that are sensitive to different wavelengths of light, which is how we perceive that entire spectrum of colors around us.
Oh, wow. So light hits these rods and cones.
Yeah.
What happens next? How does my brain actually translate that into, well, seeing?
That is a fantastic question. So these photoreceptors convert the light into electrical signals.
Okay.
Imagine them as tiny messengers sending like dispatches to the brain.
Okay.
Those signals then zip down the optic nerve, which acts like an information highway,
Right.
straight to the visual cortex in the back of your brain.
So our brains are basically getting a constant stream of electrical updates from our eyes.
Exactly. And here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
Especially when we're talking about rubbing our eyes.
Okay.
That pressure that we apply, it actually stimulates those rods and cones directly.
So by rubbing my eyes, I'm basically like short-circuiting
Kind of, yeah.
the whole system.
In a way, yeah. The brain, amazing as it is, can always differentiate between this pressure from your fingers and actual light hitting those photoreceptors.
Wow.
So it interprets those signals, even though they weren't triggered by light, as flashes of light, those stars that we see.
So we're essentially tricking our brain into seeing something that isn't really there.
It's wild, right?
That's wild.
It really is. And it highlights just how much our brains are actually involved in constructing our visual reality.
Wow.
But it gets even weirder because these stars actually have a proper scientific name. Phosphenes.
Phosphenes?
Phosphenes.
Okay, that sounds way more official than just seeing stars.
Right. And phosphenes aren't just limited to eye rubbing. They can be caused by a bunch of other things too.
Phosphenes, huh? So if it's not just from like rubbing, what else causes these like light shows in our heads?
Well, get this. So remember how we were talking about the optic nerve sending signals to the brain?
Yeah.
Sometimes those signals get a little scrambled. Yeah, like think about a time you might have bumped your head. Not like hard enough to cause serious damage, but enough to like see stars.
Oh, yeah.
So that impact can jostle the brain just enough to create those same phosphene effects.
Wow. So it's like those electrical signals are getting shaken up, like literally.
Exactly. And it's not just physical impact.
Okay.
Migraines, for example, can also trigger phosphenes.
Migraines. I never knew that.
Yeah. It's thought to be related to like changes in brain activity and blood flow, especially in that visual cortex we were talking about.
Okay.
So people might see like shimmering lights, zigzag patterns, even temporary blind spots.
Really?
All before the actual headache pain hits.
So those visual disturbances are like a warning sign for some people.
Exactly. Though, of course, not everyone who experiences migraines get those visual auras.
Right.
And not all phosphenes mean a migraine is coming.
Okay.
But it's definitely a fascinating
that is just fascinating
connection.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what else we're missing when it comes to like how our brains process information.
It really does. It challenges our whole idea of what it means to like see something, you know?
Yeah.
It's not just about the eyes receiving light.
Right.
It's about how the brain like interprets and even like creates those images.
It's like our brains are constantly telling us a story, even if that story isn't always like completely accurate.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, our brains are constantly filling in the gaps, making assumptions.
Yeah.
Based on the information they receive.
Right.
It's how we navigate the world.
Right.
But it also means our perception can be, tricked sometimes in like really interesting ways.
Totally. Okay, so back to the eye rubbing for a second.
Sure.
I've definitely noticed, like, I'm more likely to see those stars in the dark.
Yeah.
Is that connected to phosphenes too, or am I, like, imagining things?
No, you're not imagining it. In a dark environment, your brain actually becomes more sensitive to visual stimuli.
Really? Why is that?
Well, think about, like, what happens when you walk into a dark room?
Okay.
Your pupils get bigger to let in more light, right?
Right.
Well, at the same time, your brain is also cranking up the sensitivity of those rods and cones, trying to pick up on any little bit of light it can.
So when we rub our eyes in the dark, we're basically amplifying those pressure signals.
Exactly.
Because our brains are already on high alert.
If you're turning up the volume on those phosphenes, your brain is primed for visual input. So it interprets even those like self-generated signals as more intense flashes of light.
This is blowing my mind. And it makes perfect sense too.
Right.
Our brains are incredible. But I have to ask, this has been fascinating, but all this talk about eye rubbing, is it actually bad for us? Like, should I be worried about seeing stars?
Well, I mean, like anything else, moderation is key. The occasional gentle eye rub is unlikely to cause any harm.
Okay.
But if you're like rubbing your eyes constantly, especially with a lot of force, you could be increasing your risk of like certain eye problems.
Like what? What kind of eye problems?
Well, I mean, for starters, you could scratch your cornea.
Oh,
which is that clear outer layer of your eye.
Right.
And, it's not fun.
No.
It can affect your vision, like, temporarily.
Wow.
And then, like, in more extreme cases, like, excessive rubbing can even contribute to problems like retinal detachment.
Oh, wow.
Though that's pretty rare.
Okay, so maybe easy on the eye rubbing. But this is this whole idea of how our brains interpret the world.
Right.
Like, it makes you wonder what other kinds of sensory illusions we're experiencing all the time. And we don't even realize it.
Yeah, no, it's a really fascinating area of research.
Right.
There's so much we still don't understand about how our brains construct like our reality.
It's crazy.
And the implications of all of this.
Yeah.
Especially when you think about technologies like virtual reality.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty mind-blowing.
How so?
Well, if we can trick our brains into seeing stars just by like applying pressure to our eyes, imagine what we could achieve with like even more targeted sensory stimulation.
Right.
We could potentially create like entirely believable virtual experiences.
Wow.
Just by manipulating, how our brains interpret those signals.
That's incredible. We could essentially step into entirely different worlds just by using our minds.
And it's not just limited to sight.
Yeah.
Like, researchers are exploring how we can use similar principles to create realistic experiences for all of our senses, like touch, taste, smell, even our sense of balance.
So in a way, like understanding these glitches in our perception, like seeing stars from rubbing our eyes, could be the key to unlocking these like incredible technological advancements.
100%. Yeah, it all comes back to understanding how our brains take in information, process it, and ultimately create our experience of the world.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes, no pun intended.
Right.
It makes you appreciate how much is going on behind the scenes of just our everyday experiences.
Yeah.
From a simple thing like rubbing your eyes to the future of virtual reality, it all comes down to the power of the brain.
It really does.
Well, this has been an amazing journey inside the eye and the brain. If you're as fascinated by this stuff as we are, we'd love to hear your thoughts, share your experiences with Phosphenes, your burning questions about vision, or your wildest virtual reality dreams with us on social media. Until next time, keep those eyes peeled and be careful how hard you rub them.